Ladies and gentlemen, let's be honest. You haven't truly lived until you've seen a three-wheeler with a wooden box up front, a driver perched over a roaring single cylinder, and a business plan that involves racing the postal service through Edwardian cobblestone. Welcome to the Timmy Tiny Wheels channel, where we tackle the vehicles even couch experts have to Google before pretending to know everything. Before I start, smash that subscribe button like you're hitting the snooze alarm on a Monday morning, because what's coming next might just wake up your inner vehicle nut. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's about to drive onto your screen. Now let's get rolling with the legendary Warrick Motor Carrier, a vehicle so British it probably complained about the weather while delivering milk. The year was 1911, and we're in Reading, England, a place where even bicycles were considered high-tech, and John Warrick & Co. Limited was the king of pedal-powered tricycles. John Warrick himself, a gunsmith turned delivery tech mogul, because every booming business starts with a guy who knows his way around a rifle, saw that the motorized auto carrier was about to eat his lunch. Instead of posting dramatic complaints in the local paper or writing long letters to the king about the death of real transport, John Warrick bought the rival's tricycle, handed it to his chief engineer, Mr. Lambourne, and said, "Take it apart, make it better, and whatever you do, try not to end up in court." The result? The 1911 debut of the Warrick Motor Carrier, a machine that looked a bit like the neighbor's project you're supposed to pretend is original. But look closer and you'll see all sorts of upgrades. Warrick's goal was to win over grocers, bakers, and anyone who'd grown tired of being upstaged by a faster horse and cart. At the 1911 Olympia show, Warrick didn't just show up. He rolled in with delivery boxes, painted in Selfridges livery, and a driver who looked ready to deliver mail or advice, depending on who yelled louder. Their main audience? Businesses that wanted to look modern and move goods faster than a town full of gossipy neighbors. As for the historical context, Britain was on the brink of war. The streets were still ruled by horse-drawn carts and delivery boys on rattling tricycles, and most folks saw these newfangled motorized trikes as just another eccentric idea. Warrick, ever the innovator, offered a free one-week trial, vehicle, driver and all, proving the only thing riskier than innovation was letting your neighbor help in the garage. By World War I, Warrick's carriers were working for the Royal Mail, private clients like Harrods, and even Scotland Yard, because nothing says serious police work like three wheels and a milk box. Lord Cowdray and the Earl of Kilmorey ordered them for their estates, possibly for racing each other's butlers around the lawns. During the war, production crawled, about 8 units a month, with women stepping in as drivers. I believe this is the only time in history when the phrase special delivery actually meant something exciting. After the war, as four-wheeled vans started taking over, Warrick's niche shrank and regular production fizzled out by the mid-1920s. John Warrick himself checked out in 1925, and by 1931, the last few carriers assembled from leftover parts rolled out. Their service department, however, limped on until 1937, longer than some of my neighbor Bob's advice columns. Now the fun part, technical specs so quirky, they'd make even the chattiest neighbor stop mid-gossip and double-check their bifocals. The Warrick Motor Carrier was a three-wheeled light delivery parcel car with 2 wheels and a cargo box in front and 1 driven rear wheel, perfect for seeing where you're going, as long as you didn't stack the bread too high. Power came from a single-cylinder air-cooled 4-stroke engine, a thundering 723cc, good for about 5 to 6 horsepower. The cylinder wore thick iron fins for cooling, ignition by magneto, carburetor with priming cup for those frosty mornings, and hand crank starting. If you've never watched a delivery guy swear at a stubborn crank, have you even lived? The engine sat at the rear, under the driver's seat, with a 4-point mounting for less vibration, a key improvement over the competition. All power went by chain to the single rear wheel via a 2-speed epicyclic gear hub with a built-in clutch. No classic gearbox here, just 2 ratios, roughly 8 miles per hour in low, up to 29 miles per hour in high if you had the nerves, and no cargo. In the real world, 20 miles per hour, 32 kilometers per hour, was about as wild as things got, though the brochure said 30 miles per hour, 48 kilometers per hour, probably written by someone who'd never met a headwind or a loaf of overbaked bread. Reverse gear? Optional for those bold enough to pay extra or too proud to push their trike out of trouble. Later on, they linked reverse to the brake lever, but police objected. Turns out, even in 1912, it's a feature, not a bug, didn't fly with the law. Steering was via a tiller, not a wheel. Push forward to go right, pull back to go left. The chassis started out in ash wood, but quickly went to pressed steel, because splinters are only funny until your delivery ends up on the road. After some enthusiastic stacking of milk crates blocked the driver's view, the chassis was lowered for safety, with underslung rear springs and axle spacers. Rear suspension used semi-elliptic leaf springs. Front wheels were rigid, but with big, comfy 26-inch pneumatic tires. Warrick also added a transverse stabilizer bar to stop the whole thing tipping over when cornering, a feature his competitors, the AC Auto Carrier, could only dream about while picking up spilled cabbages. Brakes were on the rear wheel, drum or band, operated by foot, good enough for 15 miles per hour and a full load, at least until you hit a downhill. Around 1915, Warrick introduced twin front drum brakes, first via Bowden cables, then rods, meaning a fully equipped Warrick could outbrake most neighborhood experts shouting at their television. Wheels and tires? Dimensions: about 8 feet 2.4 meters long, 4 feet 6 inches, 1.4 wide, with an unladen weight of around 560 pounds, 255 kilograms. Cargo? Up to 700 pounds, 300 kilograms, if you didn't mind the odd creak, enough to make any grocer or baker dream big. Fuel consumption isn't recorded, but by all accounts it was more frugal than my neighbor's New Year's resolutions. Production numbers? An estimated 2,000 units built from 1911 to 1931, with a tiny handful surviving today, mostly in the hands of people who start every conversation with, "Back in my day." Back in 1914, a new Warrick motor carrier chassis cost £92 sterling, 10 shillings 0 pence. Add a commercial body, and you're out £110 sterling to £120 sterling. In July 1914, one bakery delivery version fetched £113 sterling, 5 shillings. That's about £16,000 sterling to £17,000 sterling today, or roughly $21,000 plus, and 19,000 euros by 2025 standards. Let's be honest, that's a solid chunk of change. Warrick also pioneered hire purchase, so if you couldn't afford the full sum, you could rent the trike for a few shillings a week. It's probably the only lease scheme in history that didn't come with a 3-hour phone tree and hold music. Modern auctions? Rarer than a neighbor who doesn't think he's an expert. The record? A beautifully restored 1914 Warrick 6-horsepower milk float, sold at Bonham's in 2016 for $27,500. About €24,650 at the time. Another in 2012 fetched $25,300. So if you want to start a collection, better start hoarding, not just bread, but pennies. See you next time on Timmy Tiny Wheels. Don't forget to subscribe, unless you want to miss out and have to pretend you already knew all this at the next neighborhood barbecue.